at that stage, I we don't necessarily have to go through these and then through these. There was one about the
when you became the president of the campus, the staff that was hired at that particular time, to my knowledge, was extremely young and inexperienced. I think there were 13 original full-time faculty members. I'm very familiar with George Kurtz, Glenn Nielsen. Some of them had some experience, but tell me how you dealt with the fact that you were surrounded by children of the 60s who had very little experience in teaching or working at a community college.
Well, part of what helped at the very beginning, I think, as far as asking me personally what happened, was the fact that I was born in Southern Oregon, and I knew Southern Oregon well, and I knew the people in Southern Oregon well, and I was a Southern Oregonian at heart, and so's this campus. So that's one thing. The other thing is that people I had to work with them, or our first lieutenants, are the three people that are key in running a community college, are the business manager, the dean of students, and the head of the student services. And I had two experienced people there. And George Kurtz, the business manager, was he did miracles with the money situation, with the renovation of the facilities, with all of that. I just cannot say enough. In fact, it's an interesting point. When I first became president, I called for advice to Dr. Wendell Van Loan, who was president of Southwestern Community College. And I got well acquainted with him when he was superintendent at Corvallis. And I said, what's your advice for the first best thing you do when you're president? He said, go hire the best business manager you can find, he said. And so I looked around and found George Kurtz, who was at Mount Hood Community College, and he was an assistant business manager there. And he was an expert. I think he'd be hard put to find a better one anywhere. And he was a kind of a rural boy himself. He was a rural boy in many, many ways, so we hit it off real well. And so then the other one was Tennyson Haley, who I had known when he was a counselor at Oregon State, and I was at FLOBA. And then he'd gone to Bend and headed student services there, and he was head of student services at Southwestern. So he was experienced, and that's a big field of student services. And so I had two people that knew community college business real well. And then incidentally, Tennyson was the only one with a doctor's degree for many years. He was a
resident PhD.
Yeah, and some other colleges, started on a different pattern, and that's the beauty of community colleges. At least one of them over in Central Oregon, they started with professors, assistant professors, and associate professors, and still have them. But we didn't. Ours was different. So that was two of the three. And the third one was Glenn Nielsen. Well, Glenn Nielsen was a young intern out of the Department of Education. He had served an internship over at Southwestern Community College, and he got acquainted with Tennyson there. But Glenn had a knack with him of getting next to people, getting to people, and enlisting them to help. And it showed up remarkably well in what he did with advisory committees, and what he did with this young staff you're talking about. Instead of this young staff having somebody that was high-powered up here saying, this is the way it's going to be, now let's do it, Len was right with them, and he said, how are we going to do it? And Len's one of his favorite lines was when somebody would ask him, can we do this? He said, well, give it a try and let's see how it works out. Well, now that was one of the keys to the whole thing right there. So then the people that and these three together working with me, we did a lot of planning in those first few months while we were still employed in our other jobs. We used to come in the weekends, and we'd get together and spend a weekend at a motel in a meeting room planning what to do. And but the spirit of the college was born there and transferred over to the young staff. And the young staff all taught this same spirit. And there was nothing we couldn't do.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, describing the atmosphere on the campus during those first years.
I'll move back later and tell you about the first days that we're here.
Let's do it now.
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
We'll start there.
Well, I tell you a little bit then about promotion, because you see what happened was when we moved in, there was a vote in November. I was hired in March. We were to open school classes in September with a full scale of classes. And so we felt early on that we better let people know what's going on, that there's a community college. We were going on and doing this and that and telling the paper what we thought. Somewhere we've got to make people realize that something new is happening here. Well, Marge Holzgang was one of the big promoters of the college. She wasn't on the first board, but she was part of this group of 3 that got the college started. And she was a great promoter, Marge was. And she knew everybody in Grants Pass, and everybody knew Marge and everything else. Well, Marge and I together got up the idea of saying, well, we've got to have people realize something's happening here. So we dreamed up Rogue Community College Week. And the week before July 1st, we were not able to set foot on our campus out here, which was a Job Corps facility, until July 1st, the federal regulations. But we needed to know, have the people realize something was happening. So we dreamed up Rogue Community College Week, but step by step leading up to that day. And then Rogue Community College was to be the day when it all opened. It was gonna spring full blown on the community. Well, it developed into a big thing. The stores all put displays in the windows, as Marge's were. She got the newspaper to put a big special edition, the biggest one I've ever seen them publish, that was all Rogue Community College. I don't know how many editions they put, 2,000 or 3,000 of those out. And so they built up this excitement until the first day. And then Rogue Community College Day came. Well, what do you do then? What we had inherited a former Job Corps facility. We hadn't been on campus yet, but we were able to get on. So we met down there near the front gate. And like many things we did at the college, it was not all prearranged into step by step. You do this, you sit here, you do this, and all that. We were just a group of people down there. And the chairman, Bob Rust, he read some congratulatory telegrams from the governor and the state superintendent and the commissioners and all the rest. And finally, he said, I proclaim this Rogue Community College open for business. And so then we were, what do you do next? Well, somebody said, hey, there's that sign down there that still says Fort Vanoy Job Corps. We can't leave that down there. Well, Bill Ford was one of the new members, and Bill Ford is an ex-logger and road builder and so on, big husky guy. He took a couple of people and went down there. He yanked that sign out of the ground, slammed it down on the ground, and said, big cheer.